My Beechwood billhook pole is turning into an engineering adventure. Funnily enough, perhaps ironically, I had made a video regarding blade harmonics in which I pointed out that the center of the blade is the part of the blade that needs to be the strongest, most reinforced, because harmonically it's receiving the most stress. And I didn't really think about that too hard when I whittled out this pole. And so I should have made it almost this kind of profile, thickest in the middle. But really, and also because of the pole, where we get into pole selection, where I also messed up, perhaps. Yeah, that was kind of the nature of the pole, was that it was going to go slender there. And when I carved it out, I followed the natural structure. I still could have left it thicker there, though. I could have left the bark on and everything. But also there were knots right here in the middle. And so, of course, when I started using it, it cracked around the knots. And it wasn't gonna hold up. So I bound it up yesterday with this twine and epoxy resin. Having first carved in and carved a well across this whole area here, all the way around, so that then when I could bind it up, I could bind it up wider and then flatten it out. So now it's basically flat. It feels very rough to the touch because I would need to sand it again. But I did that and I put a final coat of epoxy on it. So that's why it's looking shiny. And of course then some parts swelled up. But it's very grippy now, incredibly grippy. If you had gloves, it would be great. But a light sanding, or you can polish it, or you could keep it grippy, you can polish it, whatever you like with that. So of course I went out today and I used it, and it cracked again, because having after all of that, after making videos observing the phenomenon, and then not observing the phenomenon in my actual elaboration of this pole, and then ensuingly it breaking and me fixing it, there was a knot right here, because the bad knot was up here, I guess, somewhere. But there was this right here, and I didn't go all the way up to it. So today I'm going to patch that. And then further on down this way, it gets very thick and there are no knots. And further up this way, it actually also sort of swells out a little bit. And there's this knot here. So that could be the next to go, and then we'll just have to extend it this way. But for now, I'm going to extend it that way, the wrap. And this is an illustration of how I work, which is slowly, painstakingly, stupidly, with lots of mistakes, because I'm figuring out what I'm doing as I go along, somewhat in fairness to myself. And then something like this is, well, it's another opportunity. So I'm not going to do it exactly the same for this. I have some green twine somewhere, and I thought, well, I'll do this part with green twine instead. I couldn't find the green twine. So instead, while I was looking for it, I found some other options. So I'm going to cut this into strips, red and blue, and plait it, and make cordage, and then I'll finish this part. And it'll look different, And so it's not going to be so bad in a sense that I messed up, because then I get to come up with something fun and new to fix it. And this is the kind of thing where I can sit here and snip this up and plait it and just be together with the dogs, who seem to be happier and less inclined to destroy when we're hanging out together. It's an unusual experience for me, whittling with a serrated blade. I don't usually do it unless it's a single-toothed serration, as on my bush knife, a William Collins knife, Jason Browse Lunatech collaboration, or my recent Buck Iceman regrind, which I may show at some point. So I'm following a kind of a hewing concept. You know, I'm just roughing out. I'm using the pull cut to go in here and a push cut to go in there. I'm going to leave it fairly rough, and then I will tidy it up with a knife with a simple edge, such as this. And then I'm actually thinking to then do a final pass with this again to leave it with a texture, with a striated texture that the epoxy will give more surface area for the epoxy to bind to. You know, just probably not going to make much difference because where's it got to go to? But also I was looking at these cracks and I realized that when I did my patch yesterday, I missed a very important step. When I had the whole thing painted up with epoxy, before I started wrapping, I should have flexed the pole and forced a lot of the that epoxy, or as much epoxy as I could, into the crack. So the crack that opened today is the continuation of a crack that was already in here. So it's all cracked on the inside. Now, of course, it can be as cracked as it likes if it's all properly bound up. But that crack traveled. So we're going to take it up further past this little knot here, maybe up to around here. And then I'll do the wrap. Getting good at this one-handed whittling. Just lock the pole in there with the elbow. And whittle like you're on camera. Now, back to this blade, which if I use it like this, I can make very deep, aggressive cuts. But in this direction, with a more light kind of action like this, it works almost kind of like a file. So instead of going and getting a file, I'm just going to do that for a while. It works much swifter than a file and leaves this very rough finish that could be easily addressed with a file. But I think I'm just going to leave it like that because I think all this fibrousness should have a good knitting interaction. Sorry about the filming, that's terrible. A good knitting interaction with the... No, I only kens one way to plat, and I like my tatties fried and fat. Well, I only knows one way to braid, and I like drinking Gatorade. Is ragrug micarta a thing? I don't know. I haven't Googled it because I wouldn't want to disillusion myself at this early stage, while I can still entertain the notion that this could be another fabulous Scolder innovation, along with the triphasic grind, the tat point, and the 4D contoured handle. Huh. Check out this bug on my shirt. That's so cute. Oh, don't go down my... Ooh.